Hello everyone, this is Rick Mantei and I'm talking about heroes. Today it's Ulysses S. Grant. Now, he went to West Point and graduated. They taught us a lot at the Air Force Academy about him. He had, like everybody, good and bad about him. I'd like to cover a little bit of that today. He was born in 1822, died in 1885, 63 years old. He didn't have a very long life, but boy, he sure made a big difference while he was here. I'm just going to cover a couple of the points about him. Of course, he led the Union Army to victory in the Civil War. He was the 18th president. He graduated from West Point in 1843. He was near the bottom of his class. He wasn't the smartest tool in the shed, but my God, look at the guy that finished #1. Can you tell me what he did besides nothing? That's the way it was in my academy class. Our top 10 guys didn't do anything. It's all the guys that are in the middle that wind up doing anything. After leaving the Army, he struggled to find success in civilian life, trying various careers before finding work at his father's leather goods store. His nickname, believe it or not, at West Point was Uncle Sam. That was, U.S. was his initials, U.S. Grant, so they called him Uncle Sam, which is pretty funny. He married Julia Dent, with whom he had 3 sons and 1 daughter. Upon leaving office, he wrote his memoirs, which became a financial success and are still considered one of the most valuable historical accounts of the 1800s in the United States. He died of throat cancer from all the smoking that he did. He tried to annex the Dominican Republic. Does that sound familiar right now, with Trump looking at the Panama Canal, looking at Greenland, and maybe even Canada? So, these things are not all that new. He was especially gifted with horses, which makes sense. You look at what he did in the Civil War. He was an accomplished artist. He had a reputation as a drunk. His whole life he had a reputation as a drunk. He owned a slave briefly before he let him go free. And of course, he accepted Lee's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse to end the Civil War. His first name was not Ulysses. It was not Ulysses S. Grant. It was Hiram Ulysses Grant. I told you about his studies at West Point, how he wasn't all that great. He did serve during the Mexican War. He was chief of staff for General Winfield Scott, where he served as a regimental quartermaster. Both men received high marks from their superiors. Grant and Lee met twice at the end of the Civil War. After the famous meeting at Appomattox Courthouse, he rode to the Confederate Army the next day, accompanied by a few men to seek out Lee. The men discussed military matters, and Grant asked Lee to ask all the Confederate armies to lay down their arms. Lee deferred, saying that it was a matter of the President Lincoln to address this. Grant wasn't a fan of President Andrew Johnson as a general. He was close to President Lincoln, but when Johnson, a former Democrat, became president after Lincoln's death — Lincoln, by the way, was a Republican — the two men eventually became opponents. While Grant was a former Democrat himself, he became aligned with the Republicans after that. He was the youngest president elected at that time. He was 46 years old. 2 terms in office, had lots of drama. In addition to the fighter of the Dominican Republic, he had to grapple with corruption, numerous scandals within his administration, an economic disaster, the Panic of 1873, the 15th Amendment, Reconstruction, the Ku Klux Klan, and the threat of war with Great Britain and Spain. So the final question, who's buried in Grant's tomb? It's a trick question. Grant and his wife Julia are interred inside the tomb, but their crypt is above ground. It is the largest mausoleum in North America. So congratulations and thank you, Ulysses S. Grant, for all you did for our country.